meet our scholars here, so you guys can have a one-to-one talk with our scholars. Right, next. Right. So throughout this workshop, all of the materials that we'll be having on the slide have been posted on Notion. So if you guys want to have that on your own screen, please scan the QR code. And also we have the Slido. So during our Q&As, you guys are free to raise your hand and just ask any questions. Or if you guys are shy, Slido is an option for you guys. Just type in your questions and then we'll answer it for you guys.
Question only, yeah? Okay. Those who are present yesterday, I think you know what happened yesterday, yeah? So please keep it to question first.
Have you guys scanned the QR?
Yes.
Okay. So today, Len and I will cover, I would say, the most important part of scholarship application process. Scholarship process basically is the general interviews. Through interviews, people actually get to know you, the officers will actually get to know you, and okay, next slide. Previous slide. Okay, so basically, I'm sure everyone knows what interviews are, but basically it's a formal conversation between you and the officer. It's a chance, it's a space for you guys to let the officers know that you guys are exactly the person that you guys told them on the paper. So it's very important that you guys don't lie on your application. Of course, there's no way of knowing exactly actually. Officers can't check one by one, go to your school and ask, did you actually do this? They can't do that. So you can actually lie in your application. But it will definitely show when you go in for interview. If you over-exaggerate your ECAs, this is the time when the interview this kid is lying. There's no way they did this if they can't even explain what they've done. So it's really a judge of character.
I have a question. Anyone here have been to any types of interview before? Raise your hand. Not you guys, right? Okay. Raise your hand up high. An interviewee must be confident, so raise your hand up confidently. Okay, nice. So those who have been through the interviews, any interview sessions, how does it feel like?
Nervous.
Nervous? Do you guys feel calm and everything? So the general interview breakdown here will walk you guys through for those who haven't been through any type of interview. Say, can we go next slide?
So if you go on Google and search out types of interviews, you guys will get to see many different types of interviews. There's up to 20 different types of interviews. But we have narrowed it down to 4 different types of interviews for scholarships. The first one is the general type of interview. This is basically what all the scholarships have, so it's really important that you guys pay attention. But we also have competency-based interview. This is specifically for Shell and YK. And CBI is most focused on your skills. They'll assess you only on your skills. And then we have national awareness, usually for Bank Negara, PNB or JPA, and lastly we have debates, only for JPA and PNB. All the 3 other types of interviews will be covered in our next session, so do stay tuned for that. Next. Wait. Before that, I just want to explain why it's important that you guys know these different types of interview, why it's important for you guys to differentiate it, because it's very, very important to prepare yourself mentally before you walk into the interview, because different types of interview will require different types of answer and different way you narrate the interview.
Like for example, if you want to go to the competency-based interview, most of them are theme-based. So you will prepare yourself in a theme. Maybe it's a company, maybe that to think like a board member. For national awareness interviews, mostly it's you need to think as a patriot, as someone who really loves their country. So different interviews needs different mindset to cope with the interviewer and what's happening. Do you guys understand? Okay, nice. So moving forward, we have one-on-one and group interviews. They are different. So for example, for one-on-one, it can be quite intimidating, right? It's you and an old person in front of you. Sorry, it's you and a board member in front of you. It's very scary. It's very spontaneous compared to a group interview, and it actually has an advantage for you if you have a lot to talk about. If someone very chatty, sometimes it is more advantageous for you to be in a one-on-one interview than a group interview. Because in group interviews, it's more relaxing, it's more chill. If you're like the last person speaking, you can like copy what the person before is speaking, but like elaborate a bit. Like, okay, but don't do that lah. Like don't, and then like you have to be aware of other candidates because in group interviews, one of the hardest thing to do is to appeal yourself to the board members while not overshadowing others. Okay, so next.
I think I want to highlight the fact that most of group interviews, personally, I think it was only for Mara and GPA.
I didn't got the GPA.
Yeah, but Mara, right?
But for medicine, Mara.
Okay, but the rest are like all interviews, are all individual interviews. But for group interviews, I think the questions I got were really like weird. Personally, I got macam, oh, if you were a bird, what type of bird do you want to be? Or like,
For me, I think I'm a maverick.
yeah, so it's those type of questions, and it's important that you guys, it's okay to have the same answers, but just like vary your explanation.
Okay, so next is about introducing yourself. It's the first question for every interview, be group or one-on-one, because the guy is going to say, hey, yo, introduce yourself. Yeah. So tell me about yourself, tell me about your background. So what are they expecting your answer to be? So they are expecting something compact, something brief, because they don't specify what they want to hear, they don't specify what they need to hear, they just ask you. And so it's always safe for you to have a prepared answer. So it's something that it's something rare, but like introduction is something you go to. Okay. So like your introduction is something you can reuse for every interview. So let's say they ask you to introduce yourself. What do you think is needed in an introduction? Yeah, okay, name. Go on. Okay, background, school, yeah, and everything.
What else? What else?
What else? What else? Hobbies. Okay, okay.
Okay, small.
Hobbies, interest, more. How about from the back? What do you guys think? What is needed in an introduction? Name, interest, background, and one more. Hobbies is interest, same thing. Go ahead. For me, in my opinion, it's something very special about yourself. Like interesting fact. Like for me, it's like, oh, my name is Hafiz. I'm from Kluang, Johor. I came from. I used to go to FCK as my school, and I can shoot things from my ankle, something like that.
That's an option, but if you are a by-the-book person like me, what I did was I just generally introduced the course that I'm planning to pursue. So it's sort of flexible. You can do whatever you want. Okay, I have a question. Do you guys think it's wise to mention the positions you've held in high school back then? What do you guys think? Yes or no? Yeah, it depends. Like, I think personally it's not necessary, but it's okay to highlight like a few positions that macam you think were very valuable to you in your introduction. Very valuable. Because, okay, next question. Next slide, sorry.
Like in my opinion, like during my time, I didn't talk about what I been as a position. I just say that I just say what's about me because I want them to know me, not the positions I held. But that's besides the point. So things to include. Yeah, we have name, family background, hobby. Like Christina said, a few positions that you held, but these things are subject to change. Like it's based on you, right? Your applied course, your fun facts, talents, like what I said, and these sorts of things. If you guys can see the red circle, like then. Okay, so these sorts of things shows this type of thing can determine the first impressions the interviewers have on you. And first impressions are important because it's the first thing they're gonna remember about you. Jangan pula sangat takut. Okay, so yeah, first impressions is important. If let's say for Kazana, right? they're going to meet you first face-to-face at stage 3. And then stage 4 is going to be a group interview. Correct, yeah. So let's say you make a strong first impression. That means that the interviewer is going to remember you. So let's say, oh, I remember that girl. She is very friendly. So I remember her. Yeah, I wasn't pointing at you. Yeah, and if you leave a weak first impression, that means that they're not going to remember you that much. And there's nothing wrong with leaving weak first impression. Because like it's not something that is.
It's not bad, but
yeah.
why would you want to leave a weak first impression? No? Okay, just a reminder that don't half-out your introduction. Please don't do that because I did that and personal experience. I messed up my first interview because I half-out my introduction. So what happened was that this was my interview with YSD. So in that interview, the interviewer specifically highlighted the things that she wanted from me in my introduction. But because I had a formatted idea of what I should introduce myself with, I sort of overlooked the things that she wanted, so I didn't include that in my introduction. And she had to re-ask me. I'm like, shit, I do, you know. So it's really important to pay attention lah. If you wanna have a format, just pay attention.
Why is this? Yes, and
They don't have it for you guys.
Yeah, they ended their scholarship at our batch. But that's besides the point. So okay, so yeah, first impression is for me it's very important because as someone who is very unremarkable on paper, the thing I can do is to appeal to them outside of my resume, outside of my results. So yeah, if I can show them that I'm very energetic, I'm very hardworking, I'm very friendly, then they're gonna remember me. They're gonna remember me as that sort of person. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Aha. So sample answer. Okay, we do a small activity. Anyone here wants to introduce themselves?
Just the short one.
Just a short one. Okay, I'll read out the sample and I want a few of you guys to try. Okay, so I'll read number 2. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Lee, and you can call me Mark. I am the third of 7 siblings coming from Bukit Jelutong. I am very interested in music and I have taken rapping as a hobby. At school, I was appointed as the class monitor during Form 4. I really love studying biology in and out of school. That is what I'm planning to pursue it as my degree. Is that easy? Come on.
I mean, you can have a shorter one.
Yeah.
For the sake of it. Anyone wants to try?
Okay, so I think the finger of fate will decide. I'm feeling the guy with the Adidas hoodie, right? Okay, so loud and proud, boy. I want the person all over the hall can hear you, okay? Stand up. Introduce yourself.
Morning, my name is Christian Menon. I am 16 years old. I currently finished my ICSEs and I plan to pursue A levels in the near future. Yes. And I'm very passionate about mathematics and I hope to do an undergraduate degree somewhere abroad. So, yes.
Give a round of applause, guys. So, for the boys and girls at home and watching, you guys can type out your introduction in the comment section. I will read. Okay.
That was a really, really good example. It's short, it's brief, but it's compact. It has everything the interviewer needs. Maybe one thing you can improve on is just specify why you want to study because it shows that you have sort of a sense of direction. So instead of them re-asking you again, you already stated in your introduction. Good job.
Oh, one more thing. It's easier if you can tell the interviewer what they can call you. So let's say, my name is Ahmad Hafizuddin bin Ahmad Aminuddin. You can call me Hafiz. So it exudes friendliness a bit lah. Yeah. And it won't be awkward when the interviewer calls you by your full name. Ahmad Hafizuddin bin Ahmad Aminuddin, what do you think of yeah? So it's easier if you can give them something they can call you. So yeah, next.
Okay, so after you introduce yourself, right, the interviewers will come up with follow-up questions. So this will differ from one person to another. It depends on how you introduce yourself. It really, wait, I can't see. So for example, some interviewer will follow up with like super personal questions like how do you resolve conflict among friends or how well do you work with others, things like that. While other interviewers can resort to things like factual questions like about your past. So initially you mentioned you're interested in biologies or you're interested in economics. What have you done to support that interest? Or they can also ask what sparked that interest in you, things like that.
Personally, one of the questions I got, it was during the stage 5 Yayasan Tazana interview. So I was sitting there and I was wearing like my school tie. And one of the guys, there's only one guy there. So like the guy asked me like, oh, I see you're wearing your school tie. Do you think you represented your school correctly everywhere you go? Oh, and during the time, like I was sitting down, I was assumption. So yeah, they can ask you questions like that. And I've also been asked questions such as like, oh, what's your favorite color? And why is it your favorite color? Sounds very childlike, right? Like simple question. But then like your mind starts asking, well, what's my favorite color? I like blue. What I like blue? Yeah. So these questions are actually very important because not only would they gauge your intellectual side, you can also like engage like how quick you are spontaneously, of your personality. Okay, so follow-up questions are very important. Do you have any follow-up questions that you've been through? That's very interesting, Christina. Other than the what word are you?
What?
Other than the what word are you?
I think an interesting one was also tell me about your family. When I already introduced my family in my introduction, I already briefly introduced them, which I think was the only necessary information an officer would want to know. But she asked me further about my family. I was like, what do you want to know? But essentially, it caught me off guard because I wasn't prepared. I didn't expect an officer would ask me super personal questions, but she did eventually. I think it was YK as well. And then post interview, she gave me feedback, and she was basically she was a bit like disappointed in how I answered that question because I was a bit like she could see I was like I didn't know what to say. When actually you can talk a lot about your family, but if you're unprepared, it just come off not nice.
Okay, so we'll do one thing. You the boy with the black t-shirt. What's your interest? What do you plan to pursue? Actuarial science. Okay, a follow-up question will be, what sparked your interest in actuarial science? Wait. Can you hear what he's saying? Okay. Someone. Okay, give him a round of applause, guys. Yeah, so I think it's a suitable answer for the question. Yeah, so yeah, moving on.
So Lang and I have compiled 5 common questions that we both have gotten throughout our interview stages. The first one is when they ask you about your strengths and weaknesses. I think in every interview you go, they'll ask you this question, like definitely 100%. So for strength, how many of you guys here can list me like at least 3 of your strengths? Raise up your hand. At least 3.
Spontaneously, go on. 3, raise your hand. Alright.
Okay, can
Okay.
Can you hear me?
yeah.
I'd say my strength is that I'm passionate about things I love, and so that needs to be being hardworking, and I have a good spirit about me.
Sorry, the last one was?
I have a good spirit, I have good energy.
Alright, thank you. That's a good answer. But what you have to do in interviews, sorry, thank you. Okay, but what you have to do in interviews is elaborate those points with events that actually demonstrates that you are a passionate person, that you are a hardworking person, that you have a high level of energy. Give a suitable event that will convince the interviewer that you're not just bluffing, because anyone can say that, I'm a hardworking person.
Yeah, because like if you have no proof to back it up, then what's stopping you from like lying, right? So the interviewer knows that. So let's say I'm a very hardworking person. I work part-time before this at a cafe, and I work 7 days a week. You could say something like that, or you could just say that I'm a very hardworking person because I value hard work more than I value talent. Yeah, something like that also can fly. For weaknesses, most of the time when people are interviewing you, you will tend to like not say your weaknesses, right? Like who wants to appear weak, right? Am I saying facts or not? Facts, right? Yeah. But one thing is very important that you need to realize is that weaknesses define you also. Like no man is perfect, no woman is perfect, nobody is perfect. So for you to actually recognize your weaknesses is very mature. So I've been asked this question before, you've been asked this question before, right, Christina?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, what's your strengths and weaknesses? If someone asked me that, I would say that, oh, my weakness, I'm just so damn lazy. Yeah. So you might think that, oh, doesn't that paint a bad picture of you to the interviewer? Yeah, well, yeah, but that's where your elaboration is needed. I'm very lazy, but however, I'm very efficient, so I can finish things early because I'm so damn lazy. I don't want to do work that was for so long. Yeah. So at one point, like yeah, you recognize your weaknesses, but that doesn't mean that those weaknesses define you as a person because you have your strengths too. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
I think a trait that they are looking for when they ask this question is that you guys have self-awareness, because when you're aware that you have a certain weakness, it shows that naturally it shows that you are, you are also like empathizing, like you have empathy towards others in a sense because you realize what you lack of. So personally, this question, try to like try to not use negative words. So for example, if you're like, personally, I think I tend to do my work a bit slower than others, but instead I use a different phrase. I say I'm a bit too detail oriented. So as a result, I deliver my work slightly later than others, but it doesn't mean that I exceed the due date. You see how I word it? You maneuver the conversation in a sense that, oh yes, I have a weakness, but I try to overcome it in a way that it will positively impact others and also myself.
Yeah, and also for your strength, try not to prop yourself up too high. It's like, oh, I'm very hardworking. I will very hardworking. Yeah, so like, try to not do that because it paints a bad picture to the interviewer because he sees you as, oh, is this guy or this girl is very arrogant? Is this person like very what's it called? Narcissistic? Yeah. Yeah, so next question. Another common question is where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? Let's do a little bit of activity. Can you guys write down where do you guys want to see yourself in 5, 10 years? Just a like short, not paragraph, just say like 1, 2 words. Maybe like degree, Oxford, yeah, something easy. Oh, okay. Next question. Say.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you need to basically what this question wants from you is. Hey, sorry.
Is to see that if you have an idea of where you are in the future. So especially if you're interviewing for a company that expects you to serve them, like when you get a scholarship, you have bonds, right? So these companies will expect you to come back and work for them. So don't say I will start a business as soon as I graduate. That's like showing that I will break my bond as soon as I complete my studies. I don't care if you sponsor me, I will break my bond because I will start studying. So say things like, oh, I will be in Khazanah and I will be under the research institute. Or under Bank Negara, I'm planning to be in a monetary policy sector, things like that. Personally, in one of my interviews, I got a question, the additional question, if you offer a job under IMF or World Bank, would you take the offer? So I think it was a trick question. Like they wanted to see if I was willing to come back and serve them regardless of the situation. So of course, don't downplay the offer that you get. I mean, if I were to get an offer from World Bank, second I want to say, well, I want to come back to Malaysia. Even though I got an offer for World Bank. Do tell the interviewer that it's a big decision to make. That you understand that it's hard, and don't downplay the offer, but say that you hope that by coming back to Malaysia, you'll get another opportunity like this after working with the bank for a few years.
Because it's a trick question, actually. It's kind of a trick question. When you say 5 years, your bond is like 8 years. So yeah, just need to realize that there are levels to the questions, and some of them are really tricky. Okay, another common question is what makes you different from other applicants? Another variation of the question would be like, what makes you better than other applicants? And it's a very hard question to answer. But one thing you need to keep in mind is to don't try to be so different. Don't try to prod yourself too high again, because it can backfire. You can show yourself as not a team player, but a lone wolf. And some associates really don't like that. Okay? It's fine to answer using common values like, I'm very perseverant, I'm very is that the right word? I'm very goal-driven, I'm very hardworking. But at the same time, you need to remember that especially if it's a group interview and they ask you this question, don't downplay other people. Appeal to the interviewers by saying how you can either work better with others, or how you're not better, but you're just another cog in the machine. And chances, yeah, if you're given the chances, then you'll do as best as you can. Anything on that? Next question.
Okay, this question, I like this question. Interviewers will always ask you, do you have any questions for us? So this is, I think, not a determining factor, but it just shows how interested you are in their company in a sense. So always try not to say no, but don't say yes for the sake of saying yes. If you actually don't have a smart question, then don't ask them like a weird question, then they'll just be weirded out in a sense.
One of my go-to tactics for this question is to ask them a question like, Juan so and so, how is your day been? Because they are humans, right? So when you show them interest in their life, most of the time they will go off and like, oh, and they'll have a first impression of you being so friendly, or like they will remember you as being such a nice or like warm person to be around. And try not to say no again, because when you say no, it looks like you don't have any ideas. So yeah, try to like appeal to them.
Personally, what I did was I asked them about their work experience, so it kind of shows that you're interested to work in their company after you're done with the studies. Ask career-related questions, and every single time I did this, I swear the officers' eyes will like lit up because they're so passionate about what they're doing. So it's quite nice to see like how they answered. Like I think I asked my child questions like, oh, throughout your tenure, what was the hardest job you've taken, or ask things like what made you pursue your career until like 20 years, because they'll introduce themselves before the interview, so go back to what they introduce themselves as and ask them again.
And also very important, try to not stump them with the question to like appear smart. It's very like it's not to like, how do I say that? Like, know your place. You're an interviewee. You're not the interviewer. So don't try to challenge their egos with yours. Okay. Next. Okay, I'll do this. Okay, another common question. What would you do if you were to offer you a scholarship for a different country or different course? So let's say I apply for medicine, and then like the guy said, well, what happens if we offer you pharmacy? Or like what if I offer you biological engineering? It applies to all of courses. So do you guys, how do you guys approach this question? Any ideas? What would you do? Do you guys understand the question? Complicated, right? So, so first, our tip is to highlight your passion for the course and as a determining factor. So I'm very passionate about economics, for example. So yeah, I would really be grateful for you to even offer me a course. However, my passion for economics is so high that I would really prefer the course of economics, for example. And also, talk about the possibility of you taking the offer if it resonates with what you want to do. So let's say the guy offers you finance and you want to do econs. And maybe you can find, because I don't take finance and econs, I don't know the difference, but like maybe you can say something like, oh, your passion and the course they are trying to offer you kind of lines up. So yes, I can take the offer. You can say that to them. Do you guys understand?
I guess this question is like sort of a trick question, but sometimes it can also be the interviewer trying to like check up on you whether you'll accept their offer if you were to offer you a different course. But sometimes it can also be to like, oh, is this guy really serious about what you want to do. So it like, I don't know, personally just read the room and answer what you think is right at the moment. It can be both ways.
Because the question could be genuine too, because some scholarships really does have a limited amount of space for certain courses. And maybe the question is to see like, oh, will this guy be okay if we give him or her another course? But again, this question is, is subjective, it applies to you. If, let's say you don't think that you want to do what they give you, then try to convey your answers in a way that's not degrading to the scholarship and not to downplay their offer. Okay? Okay, now Q&A session. We are open to any questions about general, like just general interview from you guys. So, do you have questions of slide? Do you guys have questions? How about those in the
Is it still?
Oh, yeah. Good. I like this question.
How has your day been?
Well, how has your day?
My day has been good. Thank you for asking.
My day has been very good because I get to meet with you guys. Any more questions? Christina, I think they think it is a trick question for us. It's not a trick question. Like, actual, like, do you have actual questions, like anything like bothering you, anything not clear? Any questions? How do you answer them?
Okay, the word question, funny enough, they gave us 4 options actually. I can't remember the rest, but one of it was eager. So when the interviewer like laid out the questions, it was really stuck on my mind. I want to answer eager, and then the guy before me answered eager. I was like, oh damn man, but that guy's there by the way. But
The guy that asked eager, can you raise your hand?
But like in this situation, it's really important to just, like I said, it's okay to have the same answer, but just have a different explanation. It's important to think quick and just, what I did was I acknowledged that his answer was the same. I said, oh, personally, I think my answer would be the same as his. If I were, I would be an eagle as well. But alternatively, I explained my answer differently. That's how I got through it.
I never got answered. I never got asked the eager question, the bird question. But if me, I would say that I'm still a maverick. So, okay, I see another question. How do you deal with anxiety and interview stress, right? So, this is a good question. Personally, for me, how do I deal with interview stress or anxiety is because I really like to talk. I really like to like converse with people. So rather than say it as something very formal, which is it is like undeniably it is very formal. However, I tend to look at it as I'm conversing with someone I really look up to because these guys have been in the field for so long. So the way I deal with it is to like treat this not as an interview determining my future, but I treat this as me conversing with like my uncle that I really look up to, or like my aunt that I really look up to. How about you?
Personally, for me, that will not work because
Bruh.
I think generally, like I just like to talk. It's like a personal preference. I am an introvert, so like these things actually like make me really anxious. So I understand. What I did was before every interview, I will not read any substance or I will not stress myself. Like just don't do that. Like last minute, whatever you guys are doing last minute will not work out. So just like walk around and like look at people and berangan sikit. It works, like it works. It really gets you like macam in the mood. Like so you muscle, you feel very light-hearted and you don't know. And I think an important tip is if the officer is trying to make a joke, even though it's like some bad joke, just laugh. Just laugh.
Yeah, laugh genuinely lah, lah. Like laugh genuinely. One thing that I really like see when people are going through interviews, they are very anxious. They are going through a lot because they try to like mask themselves like in a facade. Like you just have to be yourself. Don't try to like I want to be the most perfect person. No, just be yourself with your flaws. Like you are perfect with your own flaws and everything. So another question, what was the hardest interview question you guys have gotten? How about you? You go first.
I think mine was, it's a common question, but I didn't want to answer. So it was like, I think the interview asked me, what was the downturn of your life? I was like, yikes. And this was, I think it was in my bank interview. So I was expecting, because before that question, I got a very like cost-related question. So that caught me really off guard. But the way I answered it was, try to steer the conversation in an area where you're like sort of comfortable. Of course, you want to show that you're vulnerable, but at the same time, don't go into topics that will make you cry because that will just make the interview session so awkward. Yeah.
So, for me, the hardest one was how did your internship experience change you? So it sounds like a really simple question, right? But it's hard for me because I never went through an internship. Because when everyone went through it, I got this during my PNB interview. Whenever I went to internship, I just worked like full time like, as a waiter, as a cook. So I never got the experience as to be an intern. So the way I answered it was to not change the question lah, but I changed the subject matter on. I said like, Tuan, Puan, sorry, but I've never been through an internship. My post-SPM experience has been working as a blue collar job, with a blue collar job. I've been a cook at a kopitiam. So then, rather than trying to say that sorry, I don't have an answer, I explain it as a way of what do I gain from my work experience. Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna get those type of questions too, like questions where you think you don't have an answer, but rather than just blanking on the spot, what I would advise you to do is to try to find something similar that you have been through.
And I think like a way to like make it easier for you guys to answer hard questions is for you guys to make it like change the topic to be like more lighthearted in a sense. Like when I got a question, I answered it. I told about a time when I got a B in my maths exam, and I was a nerd back then, so getting a B was like, I'm gonna fail in life. So I made the officer laugh. So in a sense, macam you kind of like redirect the interview to make it like less serious, but also macam show the side of you. Right, I think that's all from us.
Yep, I think that's all from me and Christina.
I have a question to ask. I think it's quite important for me to ask this question. Have you guys ever been asked the question of why should we choose you as a scholar, and how would you approach this question?
We already give that link for my question.
Okay lah, okay. Abah.
So with that, that marks the end of the first section with me and Christina.
So now we're passing on to Haris, Zaini, Alan, and Aijaz. They're gonna explain to you guys what you guys need to prepare before.
So yeah, give them a round of applause, guys.
Okay, let's make this next session a bit more casual. We'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Haris Zaini. I'm a Bank Negara scholar as well as an aspiring economics graduate.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ahmad Adlan. I am also a Bank Negara scholar and also, inshallah, I'll be pursuing my degree in economics also.
Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. My name is Aijaz, I'm a veteran scholar and I have very flexible hips.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's my time to present if you guys don't mind. To me, interviews have always been my favorite part of every scholarship application because I'm a very chatty person. I love talking, especially about myself. So I always look forward to interviews. Can we move to our next slide? So today, what Alan, Aijaz and I are going to do is to teach you how to prepare for an interview. To me, what my father told me is that everything you do in life, 70% of it is preparation and the other 30% is execution. And that's very true. I know it's tempting to just go with the flow, especially after SPM. You've gotten your standard results, how many A pluses you got, which is extremely impressive. But